It's Stress Awareness Month, and one big stressor that often flies under the radar is status anxiety, that feeling that we're not doing enough to keep up. Executive coach Kathy Oneto joins us live to break down what is what and why it's on the rise, and how we can start defining or redefining success on our own terms. Hey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is status anxiety, and why is it such a big source of stress today?
Yes, well, status anxiety is a term that was coined by Alain de Botton, who wrote a book that was titled this. And he actually came out with this book in the early aughts, and yet it's still just as relevant today. And status anxiety is when we worry about what others are thinking about us and whether or not they're judging us to be a success or a failure. And it's really still highly relevant today. For one, it's because we're human, and humans naturally are social beings, and we look externally for cues to guide us as to what is socially acceptable. But it's also the other factors at play, like things like social media that are constantly putting things in front of us and making us question, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Do I have enough? And so forth.
Well, you make a good point. It's kind of like we're always comparing ourselves based off what we see on Instagram, what we see on TikTok, what we see on Facebook, all of the above. So can you just talk about how all of that, the comparing of everyone around us to our own selves, how does that play into status anxiety? How does that make us feel like we're just not enough?
Yeah, well, one of the things that happens when we're looking externally for cues to guide us is that we can often end up pursuing activities, goals, ambitions that don't really matter to us, actually. And what ends up happening is we put a lot of time and effort into these goals and get to the end and realize we're not satisfied and we're not fulfilled. And it might not even be when we're at the end. We might be feeling that all along the way. By looking externally as well, it also we feel this pressure to really to do it all, to really do it all at once, and to do it all with a lot of effort. We get these social cues that we're always supposed to be busy, and yet that can really lead to feelings of overwhelm. It can lead to overwork, which not surprisingly then leads to overexhaustion.
Yeah. So I guess how do we break this cycle? What are some ways that we can, maybe break out of that cocoon of status anxiety?
Yeah, well, the first thing is to really become conscious that this is acting upon us. Typically, we are operating on autopilot, and this is really operating under the surface. So, first is just awareness. The second is to shift towards more of an internal lens to really start to define success on our own terms. And in my book, Sustainable Ambition, I point people to four motivators to do this. Oftentimes, people will say, well, I've heard this idea of defining success on my own terms, but I don't really know where to look. So, where I point people again is to these four motivators. One is vision. Well, what is the vision you have for your life and for yourself and who you want to become? The second is how you want to give. How would you like to contribute in this world? How do you want to make an impact? The third is what are your values? What really matters to you? What's important to you? And then the fourth is love. What are activities that you really enjoy, that really satisfy you? And in particular, values and give, according to some research, has shown that when we align our goals and what we're pursuing with these, it actually helps to reduce feelings of stress and actually can promote well-being.
I'm curious about burnout because I know that that's a huge term when it comes to stress and anxiety. A lot of people get burnout in the workplace, whether that be because of all of the work they've got piling up or whether that be, to your point, status anxiety within the workplace. I'm curious if your book addresses burnout. If so, how do you go about addressing it? Because sometimes if you're burnt out, you can only see what's right in front of you and not think of the entire big picture here. So it can be hard to dig yourself out of that hole. So I'm curious, do you address that, and how do you recommend people who are burnt out kind of take on these different methods to get out of the status anxiety?
Yeah, I mean, burnout is so challenging. And really, one of the things that's important is you kind of need to catch burnout before it starts. And I know that doesn't help people when they're already in feelings of burnout. But once you start to get into really true feelings of burnout, and this can be medically diagnosed, it does take a long time to recover. So, the part of the way that I address this in the book is to give people tools to help them catch it and manage it before they get to that real deep feelings of burnout. It's why I talk about overexhaustion as opposed to getting all the way to burnout. And where I point people in the book is to, again, become more consciously ambitious. That's what I'm hoping to point people towards. And my method that I share is a simple one, but my hope is it is a guide to become a practice where I share to people to align themselves to their right ambitions at the right time with the right effort. And when I talk about right here, it's not about there's a right or wrong, it's what is right for you. That's really important. This is really a personal practice that people need to define.
Yeah, it's something that I think, to your point, everybody kind of has to do that self-assessment on where that lies. And I'm curious, you talk about burnout and catching it before you even get to that point, right? Is there a way that people can catch it? Are there certain factors you talk about that people should look out for when they're starting to get down that path? And if so, what are those?
Yeah, I mean, so I think what is important here, partly what I'm saying it again, but is to become a little bit aware and more paying attention a little bit more to the cues that you are receiving, both from like a lot of times it shows up in our body and where we start to feel it. What often happens with burnout is that people tend to ignore the signs, and not in a negative sense. I don't mean to be critical of people. It's really easy to kind of like push it aside. And that's what can lead it to becoming something that's festering. So, what I would encourage people to do is like, if you're starting to feel signs of, exhaustion and overextension, to pay attention to that and start to pull back. Part of this is a mindset, and so part of what I'm doing in the book too is I'm wanting people to feel connected to their goals, and so that's why I point to motivators. How can you feel more connected to why you're pursuing what you are pursuing? And again, by doing that, it can help reduce feelings of stress. I'm also guiding people to really focus on what matters to you right now in your life and allow yourself to get hyper focused if you're getting overextended. And then I'm also pointing people to help manage their efforts. So start to be discerning around where am I putting my effort? Am I starting to lean into perfectionist tendencies? Am I starting to overwork? How can I pull back from that? How can I actually allow myself to even, dare I say, be bad at some things as opposed to feeling like we need to do everything to a really nth degree or give 110%? The final thing that I point people towards is to really invest in what I call a sustaining plan and really being aware of what are those activities I'm doing that help restore me? And we often think this takes a lot of time, but it can really doesn't have to. Really investing in small breaks can really pack a punch in terms of helping restore us over time.
All right, Kathy, let's put things into action right now. There's one simple thing, one simple mindset shift that people could make right now or maybe this week. What is that, and what will it take to help ease off some of that pressure? Is there anything that we can do right now while we're watching this?
Yes, I would say like pick one thing that's really important in your life right now that you're working on and ask yourself, why is this important to me? What really matters to me about this? How does it connect to what I want for my life and for myself?
Good advice. All right, let's talk specifically about your book. Why did you want to write it? We have about, I would say, probably 40 seconds left. Why did you want to write it, and where can people find it?
Sure. Well, I wanted to write a book for people who are ambitious, but not at all costs, and are really looking for ways to pursue what they want in their life and with their work, but do so in a more sustainable manner. And the book is available now for pre-order, and people can find it anywhere that you can purchase books.
All right, so get that Amazon shopping list out and go find that book if you would like to help manage your status anxiety. Kathy, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.